Sam Burgess, Warrington. But embarrassing defeat for them really on Friday night. And all credit to Salford. They more than deserve it, the fans in particular. But there's absolutely no way that Warrington should be getting beat by a Salford team who have seen umpteen players leave this season. Where does Sam Burgess go from here?
Back to Australia, I should imagine.
Well, that's the thing I was going to say about Australia, because he was effectively touting himself for the Perth job, and I think if you look at that in hindsight, I'm not sure it necessarily coincided with bad form, but if you look now and think, if you were to rank the 12 Super League coaches on how likely they were to get an NRL gig, I'm not sure Sam Burgess would be in the top 6, really. I don't think this season's gone well at all. Even, if they hadn't made the Challenge Cup final, would you be saying this was even worse than the Darryl Powell year when obviously they lost 8 in a row or whatever? I think you'd probably be looking at this as one of the worst in recent history. I mean, it already is being viewed in such a way, but the Challenge Cup final kind of is the saviour. And I mean, again, they were so unlucky to lose that. They probably deserved it. And who knows what would have gone differently had they won it. But the fact is that they didn't. And since then, it's been sort of disaster after disaster. I know they've had a lot of big season-ending injuries, but a lot of other teams have as well. And there's something not right about the team. He's had Matt Duffy dropped. Zane Musgrove was obviously released as well. I think there's far bigger issues than losing to Salford, which sounds stupid in itself, but I think there are far bigger issues within the club internally, in the squad and the coach. George Williams sort of offering himself or trying to make a move to the Dolphins as well. I think there's I'm not sure where Sam Burgess goes next, basically.
Yeah, Pete, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think one person who's come out of it very well is Darryl Powell, really. Because does anybody really think Darryl Powell was the problem 2 years ago now? I don't think he was. I think they should have stuck with him. I think he'd have turned things around and sorted the culture out. But I don't know enough about the ins and outs of Warrington really to say, but it looks from the outside like they do have an issue with culture, if you like, and they need probably an experienced coach to deal with that. But it's not always easy, that sort of thing. There's often resistance to it, and I think if they'd stuck with Darryl, he would have turned things around. But they chose to go in a different direction, and to be fair, last year it looked like a gamble that was going to pay off, didn't it? They were very close to getting to the grand final. Didn't quite do it in, you might say, controversial circumstances at Hull KR, but this year's been just an utter disaster. And I think it will be very hard for Sam to hang on, particularly with the fact that, as Sam's just said, we all know he was looking for a job in Australia. He's been interviewed for a job in Australia. Yeah, and that's not good, is it? I mean, I don't know. What do you say to your players about loyalty and giving everything to the shirt when you're looking to get out? It's not a great look, in my opinion.
Just how open he was about that, and you could say the same about George Williams looking at the NRL as well. Do you think that's just sent off the complete wrong message, especially coming off the back of Wembley and everything else? Since then, it just seems to have fallen off a cliff.
Yeah, I think he did send the wrong message. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit different with George Williams as a player, but when your coach is doing it, it's not great, is it? He's the leader. He's the man who sets the standards, and I'm sure coaches do it all the time, but they don't do it as openly as that. And Sam doesn't look. He obviously doesn't look happy, does he? It's taking its toll on him, and you think, well, maybe it's time that for both parties that they make a change. Having said that, Warrington have had a few coaches, haven't they, over the last few years? They could do with some stability. So it's a difficult one, but I just can't see how Sam's going to be in charge next year.
Yeah, the recruitment as well over the last off season was pretty poor. Dan Russell, Alfie Johnson, and Leyland as well. Sam B, do you think he was always up against it with that recruitment. And do you think if they're going to stick with him, they need to really back him now?
Yeah, I think they do. Like you said, the recruitment wasn't there this year. But yeah, I think the culture needs to change. As Pete said, it's just gone downhill this year. I mean, last year they were, the best attacking and defensive side in the league. This year, they're they're eighth in the league. I think they're conceding double the amount of points than they were this time last year. So yeah, the recruitment needs to be right. Dufty has been dropped, a couple of times this year. There's a problem with the leadership or the experienced players in that squad. So yeah, the recruitment, there needs to be big changes at Warrington next year.
Just looking ahead to this week, then look, I think Warrington have got Lee today. Can you see anyone? Can anyone see a way in which they bounce back and surprise a few people?
I mean, I think they're going to have to bounce back, but I think equally everyone said they were going to bounce back after the loss to Huddersfield. I think it's going to, like, the training this week just has to be so stripped back and just kind of just effort areas. Don't try anything, effort areas, and then you've got, I think they handed out 3 debuts last week. Whether those players play again, I think obviously they're not part of the problem, but whether you throw them into the problem and kind of give them sort of a bad experience. I know that a lot of coaches have obviously spoke this year about, particularly obviously Paul Rowley spoke about not wanting to sort of put young players into those sort of situations. He's been forced to. Sam Burgess can kind of stop that, but then obviously that means relying on the experienced players who's potentially not performed up to scratch. So I think it's really tough. But with Lee seeking, Lee can still technically come third, so they're not going to let off. We saw what they did to Castleford last week. I think it's another loss coming. And I think the fact that Warrington are at home actually hurts them, because you heard the boos at the Halliwell Jones on Thursday night, half-time, full-time. I don't think home is an advantage at the moment for Warrington. Thankfully, it's their last home game of the season. So, there may be some sort of lenience with the fans in the second stage. It is the final time they'll play there, but I think if Lee don't win by more than 20, I'd be surprised.
Great, Pete?
Yeah, you never know, do you? But you Lee would be very strong favourites. I think they're in better form and they've got everything to play for. They're still chasing that third spot, as Sam says, and I just think Warrington's season's finished. I think it finished, by the looks of it, finished a few weeks ago, but there'd have to be a massive improvement from what they showed last week, and I just can't see any sign of it coming.